Hey everyone, Susan Stiffelman here. I'm a family therapist and the author of Parenting Without Power Struggles and Parenting with Presence. And all this week in our community, we're talking about power struggles, how to have less of them or have them be less intense. Just by way of recap, in yesterday's video, I talked about one of the ways we can influence the outcome of an exchange with our kids is in how we approach them. Whether we realize it or not, if we approach our children in anger, or if we're ambivalent about the thing that we're going to be asking, or if we're afraid of them, another meltdown or explosion, then that can definitely turn up the dial on whatever outcome we get. So it's important to kind of clean up some of the narrative and the beliefs that influence the version of ourselves who approaches our child for an interaction that might move that interaction toward a power struggle or away from one. In my email today, and I hope you're getting my emails, make sure you are at susanstiffelman.com right there at the top. I sent out a checklist, and some of the questions on this checklist, it's a positive checklist, guys. It's not like, what are you doing wrong? But it's an invitation to look at where your strengths are and where, of course, there's room for improvement. I had questions on there like, my children sense that I'm in charge as the calm, confident captain of the ship, even when the seas of our life are stormy. My children believe I have faith in their capacity to cope with disappointment. I'm able to respond to challenges thoughtfully rather than reacting out of old patterns and behaviors I inherited from how I was raised. When I must say no to my child, instead of scrambling to justify my decision or caving in to avoid a meltdown, I hear them out with compassion and help them adapt with resilience. My children sense that I genuinely like being around them. So there's a lot of good stuff embedded in these 20 questions, and I encourage you to fill out the checklist. And for those of you who filled it out already, in the areas where you didn't score as strongly, where you got the zeros and the ones, consider the fact that these are areas where maybe connection is weak. Maybe your reactivity is high. So there's so many ingredients and elements that we can work with to make these shifts. When I work one-on-one or privately or in small groups with people, that's the work. The work isn't just giving you information and hoping that it sticks in the heat of the moment, because I don't have that expectation, and I hope you don't either. What we know is that consistency, exposure to new practices that are maybe different from how we were raised. If you were raised in a household with a parent who threatened and bribed and lectured or shamed or withheld love, then it's hard when our back's against the wall to not repeat the same behavior. But when we look at where our strengths are and we look at where we want to make small inroads and we get that kind of support, which we're offering here as well, we can move the needle. We can move in the direction that we aim for. So if you think about something that your parents did that you end up doing, even if you promise yourself you won't, like shouting or yelling at your kids or threatening to take things away, of course we do that because we're in that dictator mode. We feel out of control and we feel desperate. But it also happens because we feel that our child is pushing against us, and so we're pushing back. And what we know about human behavior is that when we engage in that pushing with our kids, it wakes up an instinct to resist. It wakes up that part of them that is locked in and is going to say no, even if they kind of want to say yes. And there is a beautiful way of overriding that. And that's what I wanted to teach today. Just a little bit of a practical way that you can do something this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow, in the morning, to experiment with overriding that instinct to engage in the push and the pushback with your kids. And it's a very simple exercise. I call it the love flooding exercise. Some of you may have done this when you signed up for my newsletter, but I want to elaborate on it. So the idea is that when human beings feel loved, enjoyed, celebrated, seen, understood, their system relaxes. And it's much harder for somebody who feels loved, seen, appreciated, enjoyed to engage in the pushing back. to engage in a power struggle with you. Think about it. Think about someone who you have had to do something for that was pretty hard for you to do. Maybe it was unpleasant, maybe it was just a stretch, something that you would rather not normally have done. But if you felt really dear to that person, if they felt dear, if you felt you were dear to them and they let you know how much they enjoy you and like you and appreciate you, you'll go out of your way, won't you, to kind of cooperate or do the thing that they're asking. I know that's true for me. There have been times I've gone way out of my way for somebody, not because I wanted to, but because I just felt the strength of that connection was so deep and so strong. And I felt so acknowledged and appreciated by that person that it was kind of an easy yes. And we forget that as parents. But if you think about the time, let's think about the last time your child said, sure, I'll do that for you, Mom. Sure, Dad, I'll help you with that. Chances are there was enough in the bank account of goodwill with that child that they weren't as resistant. So the love flooding exercise is a way of kind of flooding your child with all those good feelings. And it's also a very healing exercise to do. It's very, very sweet. And you might do it for your partner if you have one, or even for yourself. But we'll talk about this in terms of you and your child. So take a piece of paper or get out your phone or your computer and write down a list of at least 20 things that you really enjoy or appreciate about your child. And it doesn't have to be, actually, it shouldn't be things they do well. Like, I love that he turns his homework in on time. I love how great he is at math. It's not based on achievements. It's not based on accomplishments. It's based on this beautiful, miraculous being that you get to shepherd through life and who they are uniquely. So it might be the sound of their voice or the twinkle in their eyes or the way they're just, so sweet and gentle and inspire you to be sweet and gentle with the baby or with the puppies. So we're talking about acknowledging and appreciating the essence of who your child is, this unique package of qualities and temperament and talents, but not based on an achievement like they scored the winning touchdown. So make your list, and you're kind of getting a glimpse into one of the many things we do in our private program. So this is a way for you to kind of see how helpful it can be to take a little bit of time and do an activity. I hope that you recognize that this won't take very long, but the payoff is really big. So you're listing at least 20 things that delight you about this child. And then you're not going to be surprised when I say you sit your child down and you tell them. And it's just one-on-one. It's just you and that child. They might be uncomfortable. They might feel shy. They might make fun of it. They might be sarcastic. They might not even believe it. If you say, honey, there's some things I wanted to say to you. Would you mind sitting down? They're going to brace themselves. Okay, now what did I do? What lecture is it? So surprise them with your love. Surprise them with your generosity. Don't put any caveats in there. I really love it when you're patient with the baby. I wish you could be that way all the time. Don't do that. Just give. Just give. Just flood that child in front of you with your love, with your affection, with your warmth. And watch what happens. I've done this with so many parents, and they are almost always really surprised at how powerful it can be in such a short amount of time. It may not go permanently, it may not change everything, but it's another thing that you can do. And that's what this week is all about. Small steps that you can make toward creating a life with your children where there's harmony, where there's peace, where there's very little conflict, where people like each other, they feel safe, they feel understood, that home becomes that place of that refuge. So tomorrow I'm going to talk further about all of these ideas, and I'm going to talk a bit more about the patterns that we inherited from our own parents as we were growing up. Can't help it. They're inside of you. So for now, I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear what your strengths were in the checklist, if you were able to fill it out. Where did you get those threes? Where do you feel like pretty solid with your kids, and where do you feel there might be room for improvement? And then, feel free to take this exercise to heart, to make that list for your child, and then to arrange a time one-on-one to share it with them. So I hope that you can have fewer power struggles as a result of all the work that we're doing together this week. And I'm so glad you're here with me. Please invite a friend to join us, and we'll see you here tomorrow.